I'm glad you're here with me. Please stay until the end, and tell me which city you're listening from. I want to know how far this story travels. Because for a long time, it felt like I was completely alone in it. My son once told me don't call me anymore. You're suffocating me with your need for attention. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I said nothing. 3 months later, he called me. Desperate, shaking, begging for money. I said, I'm sorry. I don't know who you are. I don't have a son. Then I hung up. What I discovered after that shattered everything. I thought I knew about the child I raised. The phone vibrated against my kitchen counter. For the 47th time in 2 weeks. I knew the number because I'd been counting. Each buzz sent a small electric shock straight into my chest. Not fear. Anticipation mixed with dread. The kind that tightens your throat before you even look. Avery! My son. My only child? The boy I raised alone after his father walked out. When Avery was just 7 years old. His name glowed on the screen, bright and familiar. I stared at it longer than I meant to. My hand hovered over the phone, then slowly pulled back. For the first time in 63 years of being a mother, I let the call go to voicemail. The silence that followed felt wrong, terrifying at first. But then something unexpected happened. It felt freeing. I stood there in my modest Ohio kitchen, listening as the phone finally stopped buzzing. No ringing, no demands, just quiet. My name is Charlotte Patterson. I'm a retired nurse, a widow, a mother of one, an ungrateful son. Though that last part took me years to admit. For 5.5 years, I told myself the same lies over and over. Avery's just going through a hard phase. Marriage is stressful. Young couples struggle financially. Things will get better. But that Tuesday morning, watching the phone finally go still, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. The excuses I'd been telling myself had piled up like unpaid bills. And fittingly, bills were exactly what every single one of Avery's calls had been about. Not once, not in 5 years, had my son called just to ask how I was doing. Let me take you back 3 months. Back to the phone call that finally opened my eyes after years of willful blindness. I hadn't been feeling well. Dizzy spells, shortness of breath, a deep, bone-heavy exhaustion that made even getting out of bed feel like work. My doctor ordered tests. Nothing definitive yet, but the word stress kept coming up. Mrs. Patterson, Dr. Reynolds said gently, your blood pressure is concerning. Are you under any unusual stress? I laughed it off. What stress? I was retired, living alone in a paid-off house, with a stable pension. On paper, my life was peaceful. But that night, lying awake in the dark, I felt crushingly alone. The kind of loneliness that makes you wonder if anyone would notice if you simply disappeared. So I called my son. It was 8:30 on a Thursday evening, not late. Avery stayed up past midnight anyway. The phone rang 4 times before he answered. Mom. Not a greeting, not a question, just a flat acknowledgement. Hi, sweetheart, I said softly. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time. I could hear a sitcom laugh track in the background. Taylor's voice faint but present. What is it? Avery asked. There was impatience in his tone, barely wrapped in politeness. I wanted to hear your voice. I haven't talked to you in a while. Mom, seriously, he cut in. I'm in the middle of something. It'll just take a minute, honey. I went to the doctor today and... Is this going to be a long conversation? He snapped. Because Taylor and I are watching our show. My chest tightened. I just need a moment. The doctor found some things that were... Oh my God, he said, irritation rising. I don't have time for this. Can you call tomorrow? Avery, I'm your mother. I just need 5 minutes. That's when he said it. The words that replayed in my head for months. Don't call me anymore. I'm tired of you asking for attention all the time. You're suffocating me with your need for validation. I have a life. I can't be your emotional support animal. The line went dead. I sat there in my living room, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone. The lamp cast long shadows across the walls. On the mantel, old photographs smiled back at me. Avery as a baby, chubby cheeks laughing. Avery at graduation, me beaming in my nurse's uniform after a double shift. Avery on his wedding day, handsome in his tux, me standing slightly off to the side. In every photo I was smiling, giving. proud. Had I been blind all along? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I did something I should have done years ago. I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank statements. The numbers told a story I had been too desperate to see. I made a spreadsheet. Old nursing habits die hard. We're trained to document everything. House down payment, $15,000. March 2019. Taylor's medical emergency, $8,000. July 2019. Car repair, $4,000. October 2019. Emergency dental work, $3,500. January 2020. Nursery furniture during Taylor's pregnancy, $6,000. May 2020. My fingers froze over the keyboard. That pregnancy. Taylor had miscarried, or so they said. They told me they needed more money for medical bills afterward. Another $4,000. Something felt wrong. I opened Facebook. I rarely used it, but Taylor's profile was public. I scrolled back to May 2020. There it was. Taylor at a bar, martini in hand, wearing a tight dress, flat stomach, smiling. Girls' night out. Blessed and living my best life. Date stamped clearly. May 15th, 2020. The same month I paid for nursery furniture. The same month she was supposedly in her second trimester. My stomach dropped like a stone into ice water. I kept scrolling. Expensive steaks at a restaurant. A new designer purse. A girls' weekend in Miami. The same weekend, they called me crying about being short on rent. Back to the spreadsheet. Credit card debt, $12,000. August 2020. Legal fees, $9,000. February 2021. Rent, utilities, groceries, endless emergencies, $18,000. The final number made me feel physically sick. $68,500. Over 5 years. Money I gave without question, without hesitation, because I thought that's what love was. But when had they given anything back? When had Avery called just to check on me? When had they visited without needing something? I grabbed a notebook and made a different list. Thanksgiving's canceled last minute. Christmas spent alone. My 60th birthday missed. A broken wrist. 6 weeks of recovery. 0 visits. A cancer scare. Sent to voicemail. That's when the truth finally settled in. Somewhere along the way, I stopped being a mother and became an ATM. And that realization was only the beginning. 7 birthday cards I'd mailed over the years. Never acknowledged. 5 Mother's Day calls. Never returned. 3 times they asked how I was doing. 0. But the most damning number of all? The times I made excuses for them. Countless. How many times had I told myself they were busy, young, under stress? That marriage was hard. That things would settle down. That they'd come around eventually. They never did. There was always another emergency. Another crisis. Another reason they needed money. But somehow never 5 minutes to actually talk to me. When had I stopped being a mother and become an ATM? Never. I didn't call Avery back that day, or the next, or the week after. For the first time in my life, I existed in a silence of my own choosing. At first, it felt wrong, like I was failing at my job, like I was abandoning my duty as a mother. But slowly, something shifted. I went to my doctor's appointments alone. When the test results came back, Dr. Reynolds smiled gently. Just stress, he said. Likely anxiety. I went home and celebrated with a cup of chamomile tea in my empty kitchen. Only this time, the kitchen didn't feel empty. I joined the library book club I'd been avoiding for years. I'd always said I was too busy. Busy doing what? Sitting by the phone, waiting for Avery to need something. On Tuesday mornings, I started volunteering at the local animal shelter. There was a senior cat there named Bernard Afbar's a grumpy orange tabino. One wanted because he was old and set in his ways. I understood Bernard. We became friends. I finally said yes when my old hospital friend, Margaret Chuck, suggested lunch. She'd been asking for months. I'd always found an excuse. This time, sitting across from her in a small diner, she studied me for a moment. "You look different," she said. "Different how?" "Lighter. Like you've put something heavy down." She was right. For 12 weeks, I didn't hear from Avery. No calls, no texts, no emails. And instead of feeling abandoned, I felt free. Until that Tuesday morning, when the phone rang for the 47th time. Never. This time I answered, "Mom." Avery's voice was tight, strained. "Thank God. Why haven't you been answering?" I said nothing. I let him talk. "We've been trying to reach you for 2 weeks. We really need your help. It's urgent." Silence. "Mom, are you there?" "I'm here, Avery." "Okay, good. Listen, we're in a really bad situation. Taylor's car completely broke down. The transmission's shot. She's going to lose her job if she can't get to work. We need $3,500 by Monday, or they'll repossess it. If that happens, we lose everything. And Avery," I said calmly, interrupting him, "do you remember what you said to me 3 months ago?" There was silence on the line. "What?" he finally said. "No, what does that matter right now? You told me not to call you anymore. You said I was suffocating you, that you didn't have time for my need for validation." "Oh." His tone shifted, defensive. "Mom, come on. I was stressed. I didn't mean it like that. You can't still be upset about that." "I wasn't calling for validation," I said quietly. "I was calling because I'd been to the doctor, and I was scared." "Okay, I'm sorry," he said quickly. "But can we talk about this later? This is an emergency." Something cold formed in my chest. Not anger. Clarity, sharp as ice. "Do you know what day it was when you told me not to call you?" I asked. "What? No, why does that matter?" "It was my birthday, Avery. I turned 63 that day. I was alone. I was frightened, and I called my son because I wanted to hear his voice." A pause. Then, unbelievably, "Okay, but that was 3 months ago. Can you please focus on the present? We don't have time for this guilt trip. We need that money by Monday, or Taylor loses her job, and we lose everything. Did you call me once in the last 3 months to apologize?" I asked. "What? Did you call to say you were sorry? To ask how I was? To even acknowledge the way you spoke to me?" His voice rose. "I thought you weren't answering." "You've called 47 times in 2 weeks," I said. "Every single one went to voicemail. Not once did you leave a message saying, 'I'm sorry.' Not once did you say, 'I love you.' Not once did you ask if I was okay. Every message was about money." "Because we need money," he snapped. "And I needed my son," I said. 3 months ago." He exploded. "Fine. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry I had a bad day. I'm sorry I'm not the perfect son. Can you please just help us now?" The cold spread through my whole body. But it wasn't cruelty. It was the feeling of a fever breaking. "Avery," I said quietly, "do you love me?" "What? Of course I do. What kind of question is that? Do you love me? Or do you love what I can do for you?" "That's not fair." "Then tell me 3 things about my life right now," I said. "What's my favorite color? When's my birthday? What did the doctor say about my test 3 months ago?" Silence. "You don't know," I said. "Because you don't care. You love my money, not me." "That's not true. We're family. Family asks how you're doing. Family shows up. Family calls on your birthday. You're not family. Avery. You're a stranger who shares my DNA and wants access to my bank account. That's ridiculous. We've always been there for you." "When?" My voice rose for the first time. "Name one time in the last 5 years." Silence again. "I'm sorry about your car," I said finally. "I truly am. But I don't help strangers anymore. I'm learning to help myself. You're really going to let us lose everything over one comment?" "No," I said. "I'm letting you face the consequences of your choices. Because that's the only way you'll ever learn." "Mom," I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From exhilaration. I turned the phone off, sat at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and typed 3 words into the search bar. Elder financial abuse. What I found would change everything. No. The National Center on Elder Abuse website loaded slowly. I read every line. Excessive interest in finances. Emotional manipulation tied to money. Isolation from friends. Unauthorized account access. My stomach sank. The year I added Avery to my checking account. Just in case. The questions about my pension. The money. The silence. I didn't turn my phone back on. Instead, I called Margaret. "Charlotte," she answered immediately. "I was just thinking about you." Margaret, I said, my voice shaking. I need your help, and I need you not to judge me. She didn't hesitate. Tell me everything. So I did. When I finished, there was a long pause. It's about damn time, she said. What? I've been watching this happen for 3 years, she said softly. You just weren't ready to see it yet. I feel like I'm betraying him, I whispered. No, she said firmly. He betrayed you. You're finally loving yourself as much as you loved him. I cried then. Angry tears. Relieved tears, years of silence breaking loose. What do I do? I asked. You get a lawyer, she said. I know one. Patricia Mendes. Elder law. 2 hours later, Patricia called. Mrs. Patterson, she said calmly. What you're describing is textbook financial elder abuse. You've already done the hardest part, cutting off the money. Now we protect you. As she explained the next steps, one sentence made my blood run cold. Be prepared, she said. People who lose access to money often escalate. That night, instead of sleeping, I opened my laptop again, because something else didn't add up. Avery had told me he was a senior marketing manager at Rhymes at a tech company, so I decided to check. I typed his name into Google, and that's when the real truth began to surface. My son had lied about his job. The moment I hung up the phone with that company and heard the receptionist say, "We don't have anyone by that name," my skin went cold. I stared at my laptop screen like it might change if I blinked. Was he unemployed? Had he ever worked there? How long had this been going on? I should have shut the laptop and gone to bed. Instead, I did what nurses do when something feels wrong. I investigated. No. I typed Taylor Morrison, Patterson, Ohio, into Google. Her Instagram popped up immediately. Public profile. For a second, I hesitated. Part of me didn't want to know. But curiosity is a dangerous thing once you've been lied to. I clicked. And within 30 seconds, I realized my stomach had been right all along. Taylor's most recent post was from just last week. She was sitting at an expensive restaurant, champagne flute raised, smiling like she had nothing in the world to worry about. Date night done right. Blessed. Living my best life. The caption was dated 3 days before. Avery called me crying about her broken down car. I scrolled again. A designer purse unboxing video. A spa day with girlfriends. A weekend trip to Chicago. New outfit, new shoes, rooftop cocktails. Every post had a date, a location, proof. So I did the only thing I could do without losing my mind. I cross-referenced it with my spreadsheet. The weekend they called saying they couldn't afford groceries. Taylor posted a wine tasting. Event, the Iventry, smiling in the sunlight. The month they needed. $12,000 for credit card debt? Taylor posted photos of new living room furniture. Finally upgraded our space. It didn't look like an upgrade. It looked like an entire room ripped from a catalog. The week they called crying about rent, Taylor posted a selfie in a high-end salon. New look, who dis? I felt sick. Not emotionally sick, physically. I ran to my bathroom and dry-heaved over the toilet. This wasn't just hard times. This wasn't unexpected expenses. This was systematic fraud. They'd been living well while crying poor, funding a lifestyle they couldn't afford with my retirement money. And I had believed them, every time. No. When I finally made it back to my laptop, I saw I had 7 new text messages. I'd turned my phone on to make that call to Tech Forward. I'd forgotten to turn it back off. All the texts were from Avery. Mom, please answer. We really need help. I don't understand why you're doing this. Taylor's crying. She thinks you hate her. We're your family. How can you abandon us? Fine, don't help. We'll remember this when you need us. You're being so selfish. My thumb hovered over the power button. I was about to shut the phone off again when one more message came through. This one was from Taylor. The first time she'd texted me directly in over a year. Hi, Charlotte. I don't know what's going on, but Avery is really upset. We genuinely need help with the car situation, and it feels cruel that you're ignoring us like this. We've always been there for you. Always been there for me. I read that line 3 times, feeling my anger rise with each pass. When had they been there for me? I started typing a response. Deleted it. Typed again. Deleted it again? Then I remembered what Patricia said. Don't engage. Document. So I screenshot Taylor's message and sent it to Margaret. Her response came back in seconds. Always been there for you? Is she joking? Then another message. Don't reply. Save everything. Patricia will say the same. She was right. I didn't respond. I filed Taylor's message into a folder on my laptop labeled Documentation. Then I did the one thing I had been avoiding for days. I logged into my online banking. I went through my transaction history slowly, like I was reading lab results that might change the course of a life. At first, I didn't see anything obvious. Then I noticed small transfers I didn't recognize. 100. 5. Then bigger amounts. 500. 750. Buttoned 200. Every one of them labeled the same way. Transfer to the emergency access account. The account I had authorized Avery to access, just in case. 3 years ago, he'd said it would make things easier. If I ever got sick. If I ever couldn't. Manage my finances. He framed it like he was helping me. I hadn't checked it once. Not because I was careless. Because I trusted my son. My throat tightened as I started adding the transfers. The number climbed like a fever. When I finished, my hands went numb. 23,000. Unauthorized. On top of the I'd given willingly. My son hadn't just taken advantage of my love. He had been stealing from me. I took screenshots of everything. Not one copy, 3. Laptop. Flash drive. Cloud backup. Then I compiled every screenshot, every date, every transfer into one clean document for Patricia. By the time I saved the final file, it was for Alf or him. The sky outside my kitchen window was turning a pale gray. Birds were starting their morning noise like nothing in the world had changed. But everything had changed. Somewhere in the last 12 hours, I'd crossed a line. There was no going back now. This wasn't just boundaries anymore. This was a crime. My phone buzzed again. I didn't even open it at first. Then I looked. Another text from Avery. We're coming over tomorrow to talk face to face. You can't ignore us forever. I forwarded it to both Margaret and Patricia. Patricia replied almost immediately, despite the hour. Do not let them in. If they show up, speak through the closed door. Tell them to leave. If they refuse, call the police. I am completely serious, Charlotte. Margaret's response was simpler. I'm coming over at 9 a.m. You're not doing this alone. And for the first time in years, I believed it. For so long, I had felt isolated. Like I only mattered as Avery's mother. Avery's safety net, Avery's bank account. Now I had Margaret. I had Patricia. I had Bernard, the grumpy shelter cat who'd chosen me. And I had myself. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. Margaret arrived at 8:30 a.m. with a bag of fresh bagels and the look of someone ready for war. You didn't sleep, she said, taking one look at my face. Not much. Coffee, she ordered, like I was still working under her in the hospital. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd spent years waiting for Avery to call. But this morning felt different. I wasn't waiting. I was preparing. Patricia texted again. Be ready. They might try to pressure you in person. You owe them nothing. I'm not opening the door, I told Margaret. Good, she said, squeezing my hand. You don't owe them an explanation. You don't owe them anything. At 9:15, we drove to First National Bank. Margaret insisted on driving like I was a teenager with a learner's permit. Jessica Chen, the banker who'd helped me open my accounts years. Ugo greeted me with a professional smile that faltered the moment she saw my expression. Mrs. Patterson, how can I help you today? I need to remove my son from all my accounts, I said. Checking, savings, everything. And I need to make sure no one but me can access them. Jessica's smile disappeared completely. Oh, she said softly. Is everything okay? It will be, I replied. The process took almost an hour. Paperwork, signatures, new PIN, new debit card. Jessica explained that Avery would receive a notice letter within 5 business days, but until it processed, there was still a risk. However, she added carefully, I can flag your account so any unusual activity is reported to you immediately. Would you like me to do that? Yes, I said. And I need something else. Jessica waited. I need the full transaction history for the emergency access account, I said. Every withdrawal, every transfer, the last 3 years. Something shifted in her expression. Not surprise. Recognition. I understand, she said quietly. Give me a moment. When she returned, she placed a thick stack of pages on the table. 17 pages. Margaret and I sat in a small conference room and went through it line by line. And what I'd found the night before, it was only the beginning. There were transfers going back. Years. Small amounts, timed carefully to avoid alerts. Then Margaret's finger stopped on one entry. Charlotte, she whispered. Look at this date. 2 years ago. The day after my cancer scare. The day I called Avery crying because I was terrified, and he sent me to voicemail 7 times. That same day, he transferred 4,500, while I was sitting alone believing I might be dying. My son was stealing from me. My hands shook so badly Margaret had to take the papers from me. How much? I whispered. Total. Margaret calculated, lips moving silently. Including what you already found, she said. Bonduet 350. I stared at her. Stolen. Not borrowed. Not asked for. Stolen. Added to the $6,500 I'd given willingly. My son had taken almost 97,000 hut from me. My voice sounded distant, like it didn't belong to me. I need to report this, I said. This is theft. Margaret looked at me carefully. Are you sure? Once you report it, there's no taking it back. The police will get involved. I swallowed hard. He stole from me while I thought I was dying, I said. While I was alone. While I desperately needed my child. I looked down at the paperwork again. I'm sure. Jessica knocked softly. Mrs. Patterson, she said. I have the fraud department on the line. They'd like to speak with you about filing a report. I took one long breath. Then I said, put them through. No. By the time we got home, it was close to 11 Ordiwam, and Avery's beat-up Honda was already parked on the street. Both Avery and Taylor stood on my front porch. Taylor was stabbing the doorbell like she was trying to break it. Oh, God. I breathed. Margaret's voice was firm. It's okay. Remember what Patricia said. Don't let them in. Don't engage. If they won't leave, call the police. We stepped out of the car. Taylor spotted us immediately and threw on a bright fake smile. Charlotte, she called like we were old friends. Thank God you're here. We've been so worried about you. She was dressed for brunch. Designer jeans, soft cashmere, hair perfectly styled. Avery looked worse. Unshaven, wrinkled shirt, red-rimmed eyes. For one guilty second, I thought, good. Then I hated myself for thinking it. Avery, Taylor. I walked toward my front door, keys in hand. You need to leave. Mom, please. Avery stepped forward. We just want to talk. There's nothing to talk about. 5 minutes, Taylor said, voice sweet like poison. That's all we're asking. 5 minutes to explain properly. I unlocked my door, but I didn't open it. Who I let into my home is my choice, I said. And I'm choosing not to let you in. Taylor's sweetness cracked. This is ridiculous, she snapped. We're family. Are we? I turned fully to face them. Margaret stood beside me, solid, steady, protective. And that's when I decided I wasn't going to be polite anymore. When's my birthday, Taylor? I asked. She blinked like I'd spoken another language. What? You said we're family, I said evenly. Family knows birthdays. Taylor's mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes flicked to Avery like he might save her. It's in March, she guessed. No, I said. August, she corrected quickly. August 15th. I held her gaze. I turned 63 this year. Avery flinched, and on my 63rd birthday, I continued, voice steady. Avery told me not to call him anymore. Avery swallowed hard. Mom, I told you I was stressed. I didn't give him the relief of a soft answer. What's my favorite color? I turned to him. He frowned. What does that have to? What's my favorite color, Avery? I repeated. You've known me your entire life. 35 years. What's my favorite color? He opened his mouth and shut it again. Blue. He tried. I waited. Green? He added, desperate now. Sage green, like the dress you wore to my wedding. He said it like he'd won something. I felt nothing. And what did my doctor say about my tests 3 months ago? I asked. Silence. I nodded once. You don't know. Because you never asked. You told me not to call. Then you never called to check on me. My voice didn't shake. That surprised me. You don't know anything about my life, I said quietly. Because you don't care about my life. You only care about my money. That's not true. Avery's voice rose. I love you, Mom. I took one breath. Then why did you steal from me? The words hung in the air like smoke. Taylor's eyes widened. Avery went pale. Avery stammered. I would never. 28,350, I said. Transferred out of the emergency account I gave you access to. Unauthorized withdrawals over 3 years. The bank has records of all of it. Avery shook his head like a child caught with his hand in a cookie jar. They weren't unauthorized. You gave me access to that account. For emergencies, I said sharply. Was Taylor's designer purse an emergency? Taylor's nostrils flared. Were weekend trips emergencies? I pressed. Was stealing? Pat Fiven, well, I was sitting alone waiting to find out if I had cancer an emergency. Avery had no answer. His mouth worked, but no sound came out. Taylor, however, found hers. You went through our private transactions, she snapped. That's a violation of our privacy. We could sue you for that. Margaret actually laughed. Sue her, she said, amused. For checking her own bank account? Please do. I'm sure a judge would love to hear that. Taylor whipped toward her. Who are you? I'm Charlotte's friend, Margaret said, calm as a stone. The kind of friend who actually shows up. You should try it sometime. Taylor's face turned red. You bitter old. Careful. Margaret cut in quietly. Whatever you're about to say, remember, we're recording this. We weren't. But Taylor didn't know that. Her mouth snapped shut. I kept my voice level. I reported the theft to the bank this morning. They're opening a fraud investigation. The police may contact you. Avery's face crumpled like paper. Mom, no. His voice broke. No, you can't do this. I'm your son. And you're a thief, I said. Those two things can both be true. He stepped closer, tears in his eyes now. Please, I'm sorry. I'll pay it back. Every cent, just don't do this. Don't destroy my life. I looked at him. Really looked. I'm not destroying your life, Avery, I said. You destroyed it. I'm just refusing to clean up your mess anymore. Taylor grabbed his arm like she wanted to drag him away from the consequences. Come on, she hissed. We're wasting our time with this bitter old woman. But Avery didn't move. He stared at me with something I couldn't identify anymore. Remorse, maybe. Or fear. Mom, he whispered. Please. I swallowed. The pain was there. It always would be. But it didn't control me anymore. Goodbye, Avery. I opened my door, stepped inside with Margaret, and closed it firmly behind me. Then I turned the deadbolt. Through the door, I heard Taylor's voice, sharp and furious. I told you this would happen. I told you she was selfish. Shut up, Taylor. Don't tell me to shut up. This is your fault. You should have kept her under control. Their voices faded down the walkway. A car door slammed. An engine started. Tires hissed against pavement. Then silence. I slid down against the inside of the door, my legs giving out. Margaret sat beside me and wrapped an arm around my shoulders. You did it, she said softly. You did the hardest thing. I stared at the floor. Why doesn't it feel better? I whispered. The text started about an hour later. I can't believe you called the police on your own son. Mom, please call me. We can fix this. Taylor says we should get a lawyer. You're making a huge mistake. We're going to lose everything, and it'll be your fault. How can you do this to us? I forwarded every single one to Patricia without reading past the first line. Her reply came back. Do not respond. Save everything. This establishes a pattern of harassment. Margaret stayed with me all day. We ate lunch. We watched old movies. We didn't say Avery's name. We didn't say Taylor's. We just existed. Two old friends who'd seen too much life to waste energy on people who didn't deserve it. At 4 p.m., Patricia called. "Charlotte, I got your messages. How are you holding up?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Numb." "That's normal," she said. "Listen, I reviewed everything you sent. Bank statements, Instagram evidence, text messages. You have a very strong case if you decide to pursue legal action. I don't want to sue him," I said quickly. "I just want him to leave me alone." "I understand," Patricia replied. "But you need to be prepared for what comes next." My stomach tightened. Adult children who are cut off financially often escalate before they give up, she said. "They may try to turn relatives against you. They might claim you're confused, unstable." I finished the sentence for her, my throat going dry. "They might try to have me declared incompetent." "Yes," Patricia said. "It's a common tactic. If they can convince a court you can't manage your affairs, they could try for power of attorney." My blood turned to ice. "They do that?" "I've seen it many times," she said. "Do you have family members who might believe them over you?" I thought about it. "My cousin Linda," I said slowly. "A few distant relatives, but we're not close. Avery and Taylor are the ones who kept those relationships alive." "That's concerning," Patricia said. "They may already be laying groundwork." "What narrative?" "That you're forgetful. Difficult. That they've been taking care of you. That you're making irrational decisions. Classic elder manipulation." My heart pounded. "What do I do?" "We get ahead of it," Patricia said. "First, a geriatric psychiatrist evaluation. Document that you're of sound mind. Second, we draft a power of attorney that explicitly excludes Avery and Taylor, and names someone you trust." "Margaret," I said without hesitation. "Good," Patricia replied. "Third, we update your will." I blinked. "My will leaves everything to Avery." "We change that," Patricia said. "Not out of spite. Strategically. If they think they'll inherit, they'll keep pressing. We remove the motivation. And who do I leave it to? We'll discuss options, charities, multiple beneficiaries. The point is simple. Make it clear that harassment won't gain them anything." When Patricia hung up, I sat in my living room with the strange feeling that I'd stepped into a war I never asked for. But I hadn't started this war. I was just finally fighting back. Margaret made dinner. Simple pasta. Nothing fancy. It was the first meal I'd truly tasted in days. We were cleaning up when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something in me said, "Answer." "Mrs. Patterson?" A woman's voice. Professional. Concerned. "Yes. This is Sandra Mills from Adult Protective Services. I'm calling because we received a report about your welfare. Do you have a moment to talk?" My stomach dropped like a stone. "What kind of report?" "We received a call from your son, Avery Patterson," she said carefully, "expressing concern that you may be experiencing cognitive decline and making unsafe financial decisions. He's requested a welfare check. Less than 24 hours. That's how long it took them to try to destroy me." I forced my voice steady. "Ms. Mills, I can assure you I'm of sound mind," I said. "And I believe this report is retaliation. My son and his wife have been financially exploiting me for years. I cut off access to my money yesterday, and today he's claiming I'm incompetent." There was a pause. "Mrs. Patterson," Sandra said, "these are serious allegations on both sides. Would you be willing to meet with me in person? I'd like to assess the situation." "Yes," I said. "When?" "Tomorrow morning around 10, yeah." "That's fine," I replied. "And I'll have my attorney present." Another pause. Then, "That's certainly your right, Mrs. Patterson." The moment I hung up, I called Patricia and Margaret on a 3-way call. "They're moving faster than I expected," Patricia said. "But this may work in our favor. An APS visit gives us an official record that you're competent." "What if she believes them?" I asked. "Then we overwhelm her with documentation," Patricia said. "Charlotte, gather everything. Medical records, financial records, character references. We make it crystal clear who the victim is. That night I didn't sleep, but not because of anxiety, because of anger. How dare they call strangers to question my mind, when they couldn't be bothered to call me to ask if I was okay? By 3 a.m. I had a binder 3 inches thick. Proof that I was competent, organized, mentally sound, and that I had been systematically exploited by my own child. Margaret arrived at 8, Patricia at 9:30. At 10 sharp, Sandra Mills knocked on my door. And this time, I wasn't alone. The bank forwarded the case to us for investigation. The voice on the phone said, "I'd like to meet with you and go over the details." My throat felt tight. "Of course. When would you like to?" "This afternoon works," he replied. "Or I can come to you if that's easier." 3 hours later, there was a knock at my door. Detective James Harrion stepped into my living room, like a man who'd walked into 100 homes carrying bad news. He was in his 40s, graying at the temples. Eyes sharp, but not unkind. The kind of face that watched everything without letting you know what it was thinking. Patricia sat beside me. She insisted. Margaret hovered in the kitchen doorway like a silent guard dog, pretending to tidy but listening to every word. Detective Harrion opened a folder and set it on my coffee table. "Mrs. Patterson," he began, "I reviewed what your bank provided. The unauthorized transfers, the timeline, and the documentation you put together. It's extensive. Is it enough?" My voice came out smaller than I wanted. "Enough to actually do something?" He didn't dodge the truth. "That depends," he said. "Are you willing to press charges against your son?" The question hit my chest like a blunt object. Press charges. Against Avery, my son, the baby I'd rocked at 2 a.m., the little boy who'd clung to my leg on his first day of school, the teenager I'd fed and clothed and protected with double shifts and skip meals. I swallowed hard. "Can you tell me what that means?" Detective Harrion leaned forward slightly. "If you press charges, we open a formal criminal investigation," he said. "Given the amount, over $28,000, and the fact it happened over multiple years, by someone in a position of trust, this is likely felony theft." Felony. My stomach flipped. "So, jail?" I whispered. "You're saying my son could go to jail?" Patricia's hand brushed my wrist gently. "Charlotte, you don't have to decide this second." But the detective wasn't finished. "Actually," he said, glancing down at his notes, "there's something else you need to know." He reached into the folder and pulled out another set of papers. "In reviewing your son's financial activity, we found patterns consistent with significant gambling debt." "Gambling?" I stared at him. "Avery doesn't gamble." Detective Harrion didn't blink. "According to what we found, he does. Extensively. Mostly online." The room tilted. "That's not possible," I said automatically. "That can't be." "He's lost over $130,000 in the last 4 years," the detective said calmly. "We have the records." My ears rang. My heart felt like it forgot how to beat. "30,000!" Margaret breathed from the doorway, horrified. Detective Harrion nodded once, like he'd seen this reaction before. "Mrs. Patterson," he continued, "the money you gave him, and the money he took. It went largely to online casinos and sports betting. Some of the emergencies may have been real, but most of what we tracked went straight into gambling." I felt cold all over. I had spent years picturing my son struggling to survive. And all that time, he'd been feeding an addiction. Then the detective said the sentence that made my blood turn to ice. "He's also in debt to dangerous people." "What do you mean?" My voice cracked. "Loan sharks," he said bluntly. Margaret's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God." Detective Harrion looked directly at me. "Which is why I need to know if you want to press charges," he said. "Because your son didn't just hurt you financially. He put you at risk." I stared at him. "Are you saying I'm in danger?" "I'm saying it's a possibility we need to treat seriously." He replied, "Loan sharks don't care about family. They care about getting paid. If they believe you have money, you could become a target." My hands started shaking again, but this time, it wasn't grief. It was fear. I felt like I'd been living in a quiet house. Safe. Predictable. While a storm had been circling it the whole time. Then Detective Harrion pulled out one more document. And there's another factor, he said. He slid it across the table toward Patricia, then to me. Taylor Morrison, her maiden name, has a record. My mouth went dry. A record? 2 prior fraud convictions, he said. Similar patterns. She targets men with family money, isolates them from relatives, drains resources, then moves on. She's done this at least 3 times before your son. The air left my lungs. This wasn't just my son being irresponsible. This wasn't just a selfish marriage. This was organized, rehearsed, predatory. Taylor wasn't just a difficult daughter-in-law. She was a professional con artist. And Avery, my Avery, was either her victim or her partner. So, is Avery a victim too? I asked, barely able to form the words. Detective Harrian's expression stayed carefully neutral. He's both, he said. Taylor likely exploited his addiction, but he made choices. He stole from you. He lied to you. He used you. And he put you in danger. Those are his choices, not hers. I felt tears pressing behind my eyes, but they didn't fall. It was like my body had run out of softness. What do I do? I whispered. Detective Harrian didn't hesitate. You press charges against both of them, he said. And you let us protect you while we build the case. I looked at Patricia. She nodded. Slow, serious. I looked at Margaret. She squeezed my hand like she was lending me her strength. And in my mind, I saw Avery as a child. Then I saw the bank statement from that cancer scare day. $100 transferred out while I was shaking and waiting for a call that never came. Something in me hardened. Press charges, I said. Against both of them. The arrests happened 3 days later. I didn't watch. I couldn't. Detective Harrian called me that evening. It's done, he said. Avery and Taylor are in custody. Bail is set high, especially for Taylor because of her flight risk and history. He paused. There'll be an arraignment tomorrow. You don't have to attend, but you have the right to. I can't, I admitted. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. I can't face it. That's understandable, he said gently. Just stay in contact with Patricia, and keep your phone on for updates. I hung up. I sat on my couch and stared at nothing. Margaret was with me, quiet, present, not forcing words into my mouth. Then the phone rang again. A robotic voice this time. You have a collect call from Avery Patterson, an inmate at Franklin County Corrections. Will you accept the charges? My finger hovered over the button. Every instinct screamed to decline. But another instinct, older, deeper, whispered, hear him, then decide what you feel. I accepted. Mom. His voice was raw, broken, not angry now, terrified. Mom, please. Please listen to me. I didn't speak. I'm sorry, he choked out. I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. He inhaled sharply, like he was trying not to drown. But Mom, I have a problem. A gambling problem. I've had it for years, and I couldn't stop. I kept thinking the next bet would fix everything. Then he broke, full sobbing, and I sat there holding the phone, listening to my son cry. I expected rage. I expected satisfaction. I expected relief. But what I felt was grief, not for the man he was, for the little boy he used to be, for the man he could have been, for the relationship we were never going to get back. When he finally caught his breath, his voice came back, shaky. Taylor knew, he whispered. She knew about the gambling. She encouraged it. She kept telling me that you owed me for Dad leaving, that I deserved your money. His voice turned small. And I believed her, because I wanted to, because it was easier than admitting what I'd become. My throat tightened. I finally spoke, quiet, controlled. Why didn't you ask for help, Avery? Silence. Then, because I was ashamed, he said. Because I knew you'd be disappointed. And stealing, lying, it was easier than facing what I'd done. I gripped the phone harder. So you chose to hurt me instead. He cried again. I didn't think of it like that. I don't know what I thought. I wasn't thinking. I was just desperate. His voice cracked into a whisper. And now, I'm here. And in that moment, I realized something painful and sharp. This phone call wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. I was desperate. Avery said through the crackling jail phone. Desperate and addicted. And Taylor was always in my ear telling me it was okay, that you could afford it, that you wanted to help me. I did want to help you, I said quietly. But not like this. Never like this. I know, he whispered. I know that now. There was a pause. Then his voice dropped even lower. Mom, I'm going to prison. They're saying 5 years, maybe more. And I deserve it. I really do. I closed my eyes. But I need you to know something, he continued. Everything wrong in my life is my fault. Not yours. You were a good mom. The best mom. I was a terrible son. Yes, I said softly. You were. The honesty landed between us like a final truth neither of us could run from. Can you ever forgive me? He asked. I didn't answer right away. I thought about the nights I'd waited by the phone. The lies, the theft, the fear. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe someday. But Avery, I can't be the person who saves you anymore. You have to save yourself. I will, he said quickly. I swear, I'm gonna get real help. Gambling treatment, addiction counseling, therapy. I'm going to become someone you can be proud of again. Don't do it for me, I told him. Do it for yourself. That's the only way it will last. I love you, Mom. I love you too, Avery, I said. But love isn't enough anymore. It never was. And then I hung up. Margaret was there, as she'd been for everything. She didn't ask what he said. She didn't offer advice. She just held me while I finally grieved. Not for the arrest, but for the son I'd lost years ago. To addiction, manipulation, and his own choices. The next day, I attended my first support group for victims of elder financial abuse. Patricia had suggested it. The room was in a community center. 12 chairs in a circle. 12 people, mostly women, all over 60, wearing the same mixture of shame, anger, and hard-earned resolve. The group was led by a woman named Joyce, 72, a retired teacher. My daughter stole my entire retirement, she said plainly. Every penny. No gasps, no pity. Just understanding. The hardest part, Joyce continued, isn't the money. It's accepting that your own child saw you as a resource to exploit instead of a person to love. Every head in the room nodded. I told my story. They listened without judgment. Several women cried, not for me, but with me. After the meeting, a woman named Helen approached me. She was 75, white hair perfectly styled, pearls at her neck. My son did the same thing, she said quietly. For 10 years? I swallowed. Do you regret cutting him off? Every day, she admitted. But I don't regret protecting myself. She leaned closer, and after about a year of no contact, he finally got help, rehab, a real job, accountability. Hope stirred cautiously. We have a relationship now, she said. But it's different, healthier, with boundaries. So there's hope? I asked. There's always hope, Helen said gently. But hope has to start with him, not you. You can't hope hard enough for both of you. I left that room feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Less alone. 6 weeks after the arrests, I walked into a courtroom for the first time in my life. It was smaller than I'd imagined. Cold. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Patricia sat on one side of me, Margaret on the other. Linda had driven 3 hours to be there. I wasn't alone, but when they brought Avery in, I felt completely alone. He wore an orange jumpsuit, handcuffs. His hair was cut short, prison regulation. He looked thinner, older, hollowed out. When he saw me, his face crumpled. He looked away. Taylor entered next. She looked different, too. But where Avery looked broken, Taylor looked furious. Her eyes locked onto me with pure hatred. Margaret shifted closer instinctively. All rise, the bailiff announced. For the Honorable Judge Martha Brennan. Judge Brennan was a woman in her 60s. Steel gray hair, eyes sharp enough to cut glass. She reviewed the file, then looked up. This is a preliminary hearing for the state versus Avery James Patterson and Taylor Elizabeth Morrison, she said. Multiple charges including identity theft, fraud, and elder financial exploitation. Avery's public defender stood, tired, overworked. Taylor's lawyer stood next, expensive, confident, Somehow she'd hired him. Your Honor, Taylor's attorney began, my client maintains her innocence. She was manipulated by Mr. Patterson, who has a documented gambling addiction. Patricia leaned toward me. She's throwing him under the bus. Judge Brennan looked unimpressed. Ms. Morrison, she said coolly, I see 2 prior fraud convictions here. Nearly identical patterns. You're asking me to believe you're the victim. Taylor stiffened. Those were different circumstances, Your Honor. I'm sure they were. Judge Brennan replied. Bail remains at $50,000. Taylor's face flushed red. She glared at Avery. Then Judge Brennan turned to him. Mr. Patterson, your attorney indicates you wish to make a statement. Avery stood. His hands shook. Yes, Your Honor, he said. I wish to plead guilty to all charges. I don't want to drag this out. I don't want to put my mother through a trial. I did what they say I did. I stole from her. I lied to her. I hurt her. The courtroom went silent. Even the judge looked surprised. Mr. Rodriguez, she said, is your client aware of the consequences? Yes, Your Honor. He wishes to take responsibility. Taylor's lawyer jumped up. My client maintains her innocence. We request a separate trial. Granted, Judge Brennan said. Then she turned back to Avery. I'm ordering a present-tensing investigation, she said. Given your cooperation, I will consider treatment alongside incarceration. You will be evaluated for gambling addiction programs. Avery nodded, still unable to look at me. But then the judge's voice hardened. What you did to your mother is unconscionable, she said. She worked her entire life caring for others, only to have her own son steal from her during retirement. That kind of betrayal doesn't disappear because you say you're sorry. I know, Your Honor, Avery said, voice breaking. Do you? She asked. Because sorry doesn't return the $68,000 she gave you. Sorry doesn't undo the $28,000 you stole. Sorry doesn't restore her peace of mind. She leaned forward. Sorry is just a word. Avery was crying openly now. I know, he whispered. It's all I have left. Judge Brennan studied him. We'll see, she said. Sentencing is scheduled for 8 weeks from today. Bail remains at $25,000. As the bailiff led Avery away, he looked at me one last time. I didn't nod. I didn't smile. I didn't look away. I just looked. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. Mrs. Patterson, a man said. My name is Brian Morrison. I'm Taylor's ex-husband. I sat down slowly. Why are you calling me? Because I just found out what she did to you and your son, he said. And I need to warn you, Taylor doesn't stop. Even from jail. My chest tightened. What do you mean? She contacted me, he said. Asked me to testify on her behalf. When I refused, she threatened me. Said she had friends who could make my life difficult. Friends? I whispered. Dangerous people, he said. People who don't mind doing illegal things for money. He paused. You need to be careful, Mrs. Patterson. Lock your doors. Change your routine. Consider a security system. When the call ended, I sat very still, because once again, I realized this wasn't over yet. My blood ran cold. You think she'd actually hurt me? I asked. Brian Morrison didn't hesitate. Yes. I think Taylor is capable of anything when she feels cornered. His voice carried the weight of lived experience. She ruined my life, he continued. Stole my savings. Destroyed my credit. Turned my family against me. It took me 3 years to rebuild from what she did. I don't want that to happen to you. I closed my eyes. Thank you for warning me, I said quietly. There's one more thing, Brian added. When investigators go through her jail phone records and letters, they'll find something. I guarantee it. Taylor's too arrogant to believe she'll get caught. She always makes mistakes. After we hung up, I didn't wait. I called Detective Harrion immediately. I was actually about to call you, he said. We've been monitoring Taylor's jail calls and visitor logs. She's been in contact with some concerning individuals. Her ex-husband warned me, I said. He said she threatened him. That tracks with what we're seeing, the detective replied. Then his tone sharpened. Mrs. Patterson, I'm going to be direct. We believe Taylor may attempt to intimidate you before her trial, either directly or through associates. My stomach tightened. What does that mean for me? We'd like to arrange additional security, he said. Regular patrol drive-bys, a panic button system for your home, and I strongly recommend you stay with someone else for a while. Margaret didn't hesitate. She'd been listening on speaker. She'll stay with me, she said firmly. My house has an alarm system and my neighborhood is busy. People around all the time. That would be ideal, Detective Harrion said. So that afternoon, I packed a bag and moved into Margaret's guest room. At 63 years old, I found myself essentially in hiding. It felt surreal, humiliating almost, but Brian's warning echoed in my head. That night, lying in Margaret's comfortable guest bed, I couldn't sleep. I kept picturing Taylor sitting in a jail cell, angry, plotting, reaching out to people who made violence their business. Had I put myself in real danger by standing up for myself? A soft knock came at the door. Margaret stepped in. Can't sleep either. No. She sat on the edge of the bed. You're safe here, Charlotte, she said. I won't let anything happen to you. I'm not afraid for me, I whispered. I'm afraid I made things worse. Maybe I should have just let it go. Let them take the money and disappear. Margaret shook her head gently. And then what? They'd come back for more. People like Taylor always do. She took my hand. You stopped a cycle. That takes courage. It doesn't feel courageous, I admitted. It feels terrifying. That's because you are brave, she said. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the right thing while you're scared to death. The next morning, Detective Harrion called again. We executed a search warrant on Taylor's jail correspondence, he said. We found something you need to know. My heart thudded. What did you find? Letters, he said. To a known associate. Someone with a history of intimidation and assault for hire. My breath caught. The letters reference taking care of a problem, he continued. Mrs. Patterson, we're treating this as a very real threat. Oh, God, I whispered. The good news, he said carefully, is that we made an arrest last night. The associate she contacted is now in custody, and he's cooperating. Relief flooded through me so fast my knees weakened. He's willing to testify that Taylor solicited him to intimidate you. The detective continued. That changes everything. So she's done? I asked. She's facing additional charges. Solicitation of assault and witness intimidation, on top of fraud. Her attorney contacted the DA this morning about a plea deal. What kind of deal? She pleads guilty to all charges. In exchange, the DA recommends 12 years instead of the potential 20 she's facing. She'd have to serve at least 10 before parole eligibility. I closed my eyes. And Avery? His case is separate, Detective Harrion said. Sentencing is still scheduled for 6 weeks from now. When the call ended, I sat very still. I felt relieved and utterly exhausted. It was almost over. Almost. 3 days later, a letter arrived at Margaret's house, forwarded from my address. The return address read, Franklin County Corrections, from Avery. I stared at the envelope for a long time, long enough for Margaret to ask gently, Do you want me to take it? No, I said finally. I need to read it. My hands shook as I opened it. Dear Mom, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I wouldn't blame you if you threw this letter away without reading it. But I needed to write it anyway. I've been in jail for 7 weeks now. 7 weeks of sitting in a cell thinking about what I did, what I became, how I destroyed the most important relationship in my life for money. I just gambled away. I swallowed hard and kept reading. The jail has a counselor who specializes in addiction. The paper trembled in my hands. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I didn't feel fear. I felt something quieter. Unfinished. I sat at Margaret's kitchen table and read Avery's letter again. Then a third time. Each word felt heavier than the last. I've been meeting with a counselor 3 times a week, he wrote. For the first time in 4 years, I'm not gambling. You can't gamble in here. And without the noise of that addiction screaming in my head, I can finally see clearly. I closed my eyes. I see how sick I was. How Taylor exploited that sickness. But Mom, she didn't make me steal from you. She didn't make me lie. She didn't make me tell you not to call me on your birthday. My chest tightened. Those were my choices, my cruelty, my selfishness. I kept reading, my hands trembling slightly. I'm an addict. That's not an excuse. It's just a fact. And addicts hurt the people who love them most because we know they'll forgive us. We know they'll keep giving us chances. We exploit that love until there's nothing left. Tears blurred the page. You were right to cut me off. You were right to call the police. You were right to protect yourself from me. I swallowed hard. I'm grateful you did. Hitting rock bottom, really hitting it, was the only thing that could have saved my life. I hadn't expected that sentence. I heard what Taylor tried to do, about the threats. Mom, I'm so sorry. When I found out, I went straight to the guards and told them everything. I knew, names, contacts, things she said. It's not much, but it's all I can do from in here to protect you. My breath caught. I'm going to plead guilty. I'm going to accept whatever sentence the judge gives me. And I'm going to spend that time getting better, really better. Not for you. I know I don't deserve another chance with you, but for myself. So one day I can look in the mirror and not hate what I see. I paused, then forced myself to finish. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect a reply. I don't expect anything. I just needed you to know I finally understand what I threw away. I love you, Mom. I should have said it more. I should have shown it every day. I didn't, but it was always true. Your son, Avery. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it into my purse. Not as proof, not as a promise, but as a truth I wasn't ready to throw away. Margaret found me an hour later, still sitting at the table, my tea long since cold. What's wrong? She asked gently. I got a letter from Avery, I said, handing it to her. She read it slowly, thoroughly. When she finished, she didn't speak right away. Finally, she looked up. How do you feel? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to believe him. Part of me thinks this could still be manipulation. Margaret tilted her head. What does your gut say? I closed my eyes. For years, I'd ignored that quiet inner voice, drowned it out with excuses, hope, denial. Now I listened. My gut says he means it, I said slowly. But meaning it isn't enough. No, Margaret agreed. It isn't. He has to actually do the work, I continued. For years. Not weeks, not months. So what are you going to do? I'm going to his sentencing, I said. The words surprised me with how firm they sounded. I'm going to hear what the judge says, and then I'll decide if there's any possibility of a relationship in the future. Margaret nodded. But even if there is, I added quietly, it won't be the same. It can't be. No, she said. But maybe it could be something better, healthier, with boundaries. Maybe, I replied, but I wasn't ready to believe that yet. The courtroom was packed on the day of Avery's sentencing. Not with family, with victims. Detective Harrion had warned me. In cases like this, he'd said, there's almost always more than one. As I sat beside Margaret and Patricia, I looked around the room. Strangers, men and women of different ages. Some nervous, some angry, some exhausted. Avery hadn't just taken from me. He'd borrowed from friends, from coworkers, from former classmates. Small amounts, big promises, the same pattern. When Avery was brought in, he didn't look up at first. Then his eyes found mine. He didn't smile. He didn't plead. He just nodded once. Acknowledgement, not expectation. And as I sat there, watching my son stand among the consequences of his own choices, I realized something unsettling. This courtroom wasn't the end of his story, or mine. It was the beginning of something far more complicated. People had come to make victim impact statements. Not just me. I sat in the front row of the courtroom with Patricia on one side, Margaret beside me, and Linda on my other side. Behind us sat strangers, men and women whose lives had also been bent, strained and damaged by Avery's addiction and lies. Judge Brennan entered and we all rose. We are here for the sentencing of Avery James Patterson, she said. Mr. Patterson, please stand. Avery stood. He looked different than he had at the preliminary hearing. Cleaner, more present, his eyes clearer. But there was no mistaking the devastation in his face. Mr. Patterson, Judge Brennan continued, I have reviewed your prison tensing report. I've read letters from your addiction counselor, From other inmates who have observed your commitment to recovery, and from your mother. She looked directly at me. Mrs. Patterson, your letter was very moving. My chest tightened. I'd written it late one night, when sleep wouldn't come. Pouring out everything. I felt but rarely said aloud. I'd written about the boy Avery had been, the man he became, and the small, fragile possibility that someday he might become someone I could be proud of again. Your Honor, Avery's lawyer said, standing. My client would like to address the court. Go ahead, Mr. Patterson, Judge Brennan said. Avery turned to face the courtroom, to face me. I don't have much to say that I haven't already said. He began. I'm guilty of all of it. I stole from my mother. I lied to her. I treated her like an ATM instead of the woman who sacrificed everything to raise me alone. His voice cracked, but he kept going. I have a gambling addiction. That's not an excuse. It's an explanation, and I'm getting real help for it. He swallowed. But addiction didn't make me cruel. It didn't make me tell my mother not to call me on her birthday. That was just me being selfish and terrible. Now he looked directly at me. Mom, I know you're here. I can't look at you for long, because I'm too ashamed. But I need you to know you did the right thing, cutting me off. Calling the police. Protecting yourself. The room was completely still. You saved my life by refusing to enable me anymore. He said quietly. I just wish it hadn't taken losing you to understand that. He turned back to the judge. I'm ready to accept whatever sentence you give me, Your Honor, and I'm going to use that time to become someone my mother could be proud of again, even if she never wants to see me again. Silence filled the courtroom. Judge Brennan studied him for a long moment. Mr. Patterson, she said, I've been a judge for 23 years. I've seen many people stand where you're standing and say they're sorry. Most are just sorry they got caught. She paused. But I believe you may actually be sorry for what you did. She opened the sentencing guidelines. The charge is you pleaded guilty to carry a maximum sentence of 7 years. However, given your cooperation, your guilty plea, your commitment to treatment, and frankly, the compelling letter from your mother, I am prepared to show some leniency. Avery's lawyer straightened, hopeful. You are sentenced to 3 years in the Ohio State Correctional System, Judge Brennan continued. However, this sentence will be suspended after 18 months if, and only if, you successfully complete an intensive gambling addiction treatment program, maintain perfect conduct, and make full restitution to your victims. Thank you, Your Honor, Avery whispered. I'm not finished, Judge Brennan said sharply. You will also attend Gamblers Anonymous for 5 years following your release. You will be on probation for 3 years, and if you violate any condition of this sentence, you will serve the full term. Am I clear? Yes, Your Honor, Avery said. Crystal clear. Judge Brennan turned to me. Mrs. Patterson, would you like to make a statement? I hadn't planned to, but I stood anyway. Your Honor, I began, my voice steady despite the weight in my chest. For 5 years, I unknowingly enabled my son's addiction. I gave him money. I made excuses. I ignored warning signs because I didn't want to see them. I looked at Avery. I thought that's what love meant. Saying yes. Always yes. I took a breath. I was wrong. Real love means boundaries. Real love means allowing consequences. Real love means saying no when yes would cause more harm. The room was silent. I hope my son learns that. I hope he becomes the man I raised him to be. But whether he does or not, I've learned to love myself enough to protect myself. And that's something I should have learned a long time ago. I sat down. Well said, Mrs. Patterson, Judge Brennan said quietly. Mr. Patterson, you have an extraordinary mother. I hope someday you deserve her. She struck the gavel. The court is adjourned. Later that morning, I sat alone in a busy coffee shop near the courthouse. Sunlight streamed through the windows. People laughed, talked, hurried past outside. Life going on. It was a beautiful spring day, the kind that reminds you that being alive is a gift. My phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. Still meeting Joyce for lunch. I'm making my famous lasagna tonight if you want to come over. I smiled. Wouldn't miss it, I replied. Life had changed so much in 6 months. I'd moved back into my own house. now with new locks and a security system. I'd joined the elder advocacy group Joyce ran. Together we'd helped lobby for stronger elder protection laws in Ohio. I'd even testified before the state legislature, and I'd started painting again. Something I loved when I was young but had abandoned for years, while putting everyone else first. For the first time in a long time, my life felt like it belonged to me again. Final section, rewritten, closing. My living room now held 3 canvases in progress. Paintbrushes rested in jars by the window. Sunlight spilled across unfinished colors. Bernard, my Bernard, was curled up on the couch, stretched long and luxurious, asleep in a warm patch of light like he'd always belonged there. Because he did. So did I. I had coffee with Margaret twice a week, lunch with Linda once a month, book club every Wednesday, volunteer work every Tuesday, advocacy meetings when the schedule demanded it. My life wasn't quiet. It wasn't empty. It was full. The bell above the coffee shop door chimed. I looked up, and my breath caught. Avery stood there. Not the broken man in an orange jumpsuit. Not the angry voice on the phone. Not the stranger who once told me not to call. This Avery looked healthier. He'd gained weight. His shoulders were straighter. His eyes were clear. He wore simple civilian clothes. He'd been released to a halfway house 2 weeks earlier. As part of his treatment program, this was our first meeting since sentencing. He'd asked through his counselor if I'd consider seeing him. I'd thought about it for a full week before saying yes. He saw me and stopped. For a moment, I thought he might turn around and leave. Avery, I said gently. I'm here. Come sit down. He walked toward me slowly, like he was approaching something fragile. Hi, Mom. Hello, sweetheart. Would you like some coffee? Yes. Thank you. He ordered plain black coffee. No pastry, no extras. Small choices, but meaningful ones. Thank you for meeting me, he said quietly. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either, I replied. I decided to give you this chance. Just this one. We'll see. He nodded. That's fair. How's the halfway house? Good, strict, structured. I go to GA meetings every day. Counseling 3 times a week. I got a job. Warehouse work. It's honest. I'm paying my own way. I'm glad, I said. And I meant it. He swallowed. Mom, I don't know how to do this. We never just talked before. It was always me asking for something. Then let's do it differently, I said. Tell me about your work. What's a typical day like? He blinked, surprised. Then he started talking. About routines. About coworkers. About meetings. About listening instead of lying. About learning how to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. I listened. Not waiting for the ask. Not bracing for disappointment. Just listening to my son talk about his life. What about you? He asked finally. How have you been? I've been good, I said. Really good. I told him about the advocacy group, the legislation, the speaking, the painting, because of what I did to you. He said quietly. Because of what happened to too many people. I corrected gently. Elder financial abuse is common, Avery. Talking about it helps stop it. I'm sorry I made you the victim of that. I know, I said. And I forgive you for the stealing. That was your addiction. He tensed. What I'm still working on forgiving, I continued, is the cruelty. Telling me not to call. Ignoring me when I was scared. That wasn't addiction. That was a choice. He didn't look away. You're right, he said. That was me. The worst parts of me. Maybe you can't fix that, I said. But you can choose to be better going forward. I want to, he said. I want to be someone you can be proud of again. Then do it, I said. Not for me. For you. We sat in silence. It wasn't comfortable. But it wasn't hostile either. It was real. Can I ask you something? He said. Yes. Do you think we'll ever have a normal relationship? Like other mothers and sons? I thought carefully. I don't know what normal means anymore, I said. Our relationship will never be what it was. I can't unknow what I know. He nodded. But maybe, I continued, we can build something new, honest, with boundaries. I can live with boundaries, he said. You'll have to. I love you. I love you too, I said. But I love myself now as well, and I won't sacrifice my well-being for anyone anymore. I wouldn't want you to, he said. I want you happy, even if that happiness doesn't include me. It might include you someday, I said. If you keep doing the work. I will. Don't promise, I said. Just do it. 1 year later, I stood inside the Ohio State Legislature again. This time, not to testify, but to watch the governor sign the Elder Protection Act into law. Stronger penalties, mandatory bank reporting, expanded APS funding. Joyce stood beside me, tears in her eyes. We did it, Charlotte. Yes, I said. We did. A young woman approached afterward. Mrs. Patterson, I'm Emily Brennan, APS social worker. I wanted to thank you. Your advocacy helped us get the funding we needed. That means everything, I said. She hesitated. May I ask something? Yes. Do you regret it? Turning in your son? I thought about Avery. We'd met for coffee twice, more since that first meeting. Slowly, carefully, building something new. I don't regret protecting myself, I said. I regret that it had to happen. But standing up for myself was the most loving thing I could have done. For both of us. She smiled. Thank you. I needed to hear that. That night, Margaret hosted dinner. Joyce, Linda, Helen. Friends who knew the whole truth. Laughter filled the room. At one point, Margaret raised her glass. To Charlotte, who taught us it's never too late to choose yourself. To Charlotte, everyone echoed. Tears filled my eyes. Happy tears. Later, driving home, my phone buzzed at a red light. Avery, 90 days sober from gambling. Counselor says I'm making real progress. Hope you're having a good night, I replied. Proud of you. Keep going. Not I love you. Not yet, but proud. That was honest. That was real. Years later, the wedding was small. Emily, now Avery's partner, stood radiant in a simple white dress. Avery stood beside her, 2 years sober, employed, accountable. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, silence filled the room. Then Avery spoke. Before we continue, I need to say something. He looked at me. Mom, I don't deserve your presence here. But you're here anyway. Thank you. For teaching me that boundaries aren't punishment. They're respect. Tears streamed down my face. I'm proud to be your son, he said. I'm proud of you too, I replied softly. Keep being this man. At the reception, Avery asked me to dance. You come because you choose to, he said. Not because you have to. Yes, I smiled. And you respect that. I always will. That night, driving home alone, I felt peace. Not perfection. Peace. I'd learned that love doesn't require self-destruction. That boundaries are acts of courage. That saying no can be compassion. And most importantly, I learned that I was enough. Just me, Charlotte Patterson, retired nurse, advocate, painter, cat owner, woman, enough.